welcome to our preview show for Week 5 football. I'm Bob Strictly, and with me is Cody Leist. It's very nice of you to join us, and we're ready for some more football this evening. But before we get to that, let's review our Week 4 games. And you were at Valley, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was at Valley. They were hosting Chesapeake, a battle of undefeated this last week. A very competitive game between both teams. The only thing was Chesapeake had a very tough time with turnovers. And it wasn't just their regular turnovers. It was the miscues also on special teams. They had their first punt of the game was, I believe, 4, maybe 6 yards net. It was a rugby-style punt. It really didn't go off too well for them. And Valley capitalized with a touchdown. After that, and then you had also in the second half, Chesapeake's first series, they had the punt. Ball goes over the punter's head. He has to cover for a safety. The next series, Valley goes in and scores on a touchdown. There's right there a 9-point swing easily, and that's basically the difference in the ball game. Now, you were over covering Northwest hosting Notre Dame. You had a pretty entertaining game, Bob.
Yeah, went down to the last seconds. It was back and forth in the first half, and then it really just came down to a 3-minute drive by Northwest. It was fueled all by runs, no passing. Luke Brown, all-star Luke Brown, he's just an incredible back, ran for 233 yards and got the go-ahead touchdown with 8.4 seconds left to give Northwest a win 23-20. It's a very exciting game, a little bit of controversy as to whether or not Brown got in, but it was disappointing for Notre Dame, and it was kind of a signature win for Northwest to kind of get out there and prove that they can compete with one of the more competitive programs, albeit small schools, in the area.
And also, you have to think of it. Last year, they're 2-8. They've already eclipsed that win total. They're at 3-1 right now.
That's right. And then you go ahead and look at this week. They got another chance to make an impact in as far as the area teams go when they take on Sims Valley. So when Northwest travels out to Sims Valley this week, it'll be another chance to prove that they're a legitimate 3-1 team, and then 4-1 for that. Hopefully for them.
Yeah,
we'll see. So hopefully for Sims Valley, but. So let's go ahead and look at the game that you'll be covering this week with Chillicothe and Portsmouth, and that's a battle of two teams that are struggling to get their feet underneath them.
That's the understatement of the year, Bob.
Yeah.
Both teams 0-4 coming into this game. This will be Chillicothe's first SEOAL game of the year, second for Portsmouth. They last week had a really tough time against a pretty decent Warren team. Ended up losing 51-21. Here's the thing that sticks out a lot: 8 turnovers. That's how many turnovers Portsmouth by themselves committed. They're after 4 games, they're at 20. That is unheard of. At that pace right now, they could have 50 turnovers in one game, in one season, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's hard to fathom, especially with a Kirk Clifford team. It's just they're shooting themselves in the foot. And then you look at the team that's coming into town from Ross County, Chillicothe, they're in the same boat. Ron Hinton, who has came into Chillicothe, this is his second year coaching the Cavaliers. This is the first time that he's taken this team to the Coliseum. He's been really falling on some tough times. When I was talking to him earlier this week, he had said that they projected starting 11 on offense that they were going to have to start the season has not played a single down together, nor will they because of injuries or illness. Right now, they had 4 returning linemen from last year on opening day, and what happens? Only their center is the only one left standing right now. That's how much injury plagued it is. Another thing that's injury plagued with Chillicothe, they had to cancel their JV schedule. That's again Ron Hinton, a guy who has 2 state high school championship reigns under his belt when he coached at Amanda Clear Creek. Probably never saw this coming when he came down State Route 159 from Amanda. But it's a really tough thing for him. And I'll tell you what, both coaches are saying it's a battle of attrition. It's whoever can get out of their own way first. And that's going to be the key here for these 2 long rivals in this homecoming game.
Well, one thing we do know is that somebody's got to win it. It's hard to predict who, but if Portsmouth is going to have a chance against anybody, Chillicothe might provide their best chance all season long. Mm-hmm. Now, moving on to another game, which our new Stringer sports writer, Jake Doro, will be covering for us this evening. It'll be Manchester at East. And that'll be an interesting game. I talked to Coach Todd Gilliland yesterday, and he just let me know that he's been pleased but not completely satisfied with the way his team has progressed. He's really liked the way his offensive line has come together, and this game is going to be a chance for them to really gel and just grow up a bit more. And then we have West and Chesapeake playing, and you just talked about Chesapeake earlier on, how they played Valley and they were a good team coming in. That's going to be probably the stiffest test that West has faced to this point.
Mm-hmm. And exactly. Right now, West going up against another Lawrence County team in Chesapeake. This one going at Chesapeake. West last week had a very, very easy time with Rock Hill, 70-14. Listening to a couple of the call-in shows Saturday morning, Bob Schaefer even talked about it. He said that they would put their reserve kids in, and they were just running dive plays. They were just finding the holes easily. I mean, that kind of shows how much West is in sync. But also, Will McCullister from Rock Hill, the quarterback, was out for most of that game. He got hurt in the first series, so that doesn't help Rock Hill's chances. But one way or another, that's still a pretty big win.
Yeah, and with McCullister, he's questionable going into the game against Wheelersburg this week. I talked to Coach Rob Woodward, and he said that they're planning around the idea that he's still going to play. But, of course, if he doesn't play, that completely changes the offensive look of that Rock Hill team and probably will open the door for a Wheelersburg team to take advantage of a team that's been dependent on basically one player. In talking to Bob Schaefer back to West, he took this week, and it's almost the halfway point of the season, and a lot of the coaches are starting to realize who their leaders are and guys that are stepping into roles that maybe they were uncertain about in the beginning of the year. He's really calling out his two fullbacks in Crace and Meeker, and they have the tough duty of replacing the all-star running back Trevon Pendleton, who's now at Michigan State. But they're not as much of a focus of the offense like Pendleton was last season, but they're doing their jobs and making the way for Auger and Bricker to really stack up some impressive yardage totals. Last game, they were both over 100 yards. And Schaefer just looks at Chesapeake as another point in the season where you can prove where you're at and where you need to go. But that's it for us. Enjoy all the football action this evening and join us next week. I'm Bob Strictly, and with me is Cody Lice in the Portsmouth Daily Times newsroom.